Hey, two Star Wars nerds here, and we are going to be talking about the Geonosis arc in the Clone Wars animated series. We're going through the whole series in chronological order, based on arcs, best that we can. It gets a little complicated.
Yes.
But yeah, this is a 5-episode arc.
Yeah, I think this is the longest one so far.
So far, yeah, this is the longest one. And they're in sequential order, which is cool. Makes watching easier. You don't have to skip around. You just let it just keep playing.
Yes.
But let's just give overall thoughts right at the top. I'll kind of give a summary, and then we can get into some specifics. So why don't you start with just your overall thoughts?
I thought this was a really, really good arc, especially for a 5-episode. It kept my attention the entire time. And this is an arc, I've seen it multiple times, and it's one that I remember. So like when we were watching it, it was just so memorable. So even as we were rewatching it, I knew it was going to happen next. Whereas some arcs, I'm like, I don't quite remember. Not that it's not good or anything. I pretty much like all of Clone Wars, but this is just a very memorable arc. And so I really like just overall how it is, the story, the character development, just how it starts with Padme and Clovis, and then it ends with these crazy worm parasites and everything in between. It's just, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of good storytelling, there's a lot of character development. You're introduced to Barriss, you kind of see her and Ahsoka's relationship, so it's a solid arc.
That's a really good point actually about it being memorable. I didn't really think about that. I saw more detail, but I was like, oh yeah, I remember all of this. Or there's some arcs where I'm like, what? I forgot this was even part of the show.
Right.
Overall, I really liked it. I think it started off, I wouldn't say weak, but it started off okay for me, and then it grew, and in the middle, I really liked it. And then I feel like the last 2 episodes are like their own kind of arc in a way. It continues, but they're different, and we can talk about that. But just as a recap for everybody.
5 episodes, here we go.
5 episodes. I'm going to keep it super short. Basically, what's happening is you find out that Clovis, a former lover of Padme, is kind of what they're insinuating. Clovis essentially is this intermediary between like the banking clan and the separatists to finance the droid factory, Dooku's foundry, on Geonosis. And he's kind of like playing his cards pretty high, you know, and he's rubbing shoulders with a lot of big people, and he's like, hey, I have a guaranteed investment going against the Republic, freedom, everything like that. And so it starts off stealing the plans for this foundry to destroy it. They already know of its existence, but now they want to know how to destroy it.
Right.
So Padme's a part of that. Anakin's a part of that. And then once they get the plans, basically you get like Obi, Kidi, Mundi, Ahsoka, Anakin, Rex, all these guys. The whole squad shows up. And they do a full-scale planetary invasion. Awesome action in the second episode. And then you go into this whole thing where Luminara Unduli comes and Barriss comes, and they're going to send Ahsoka and Barriss into the catacombs to basically sneak in and blow up kind of the central computer, where everything's going from. And they're gonna sacrifice their lives, because they think they're not going to make it.
Yep.
And they end up blowing everything up, and Lord Poggle starts running away, as separatists do, and
typical.
Master Unduli chases after him in a sandstorm, and then this is where it gets really weird, because then you get into like the zombie Geonosians and the parasites, and it becomes this like pseudo horror thriller Star Wars thing, and it really works.
But it works, yeah.
And it's really, really cool, and it's very atmospheric. And then basically the Queen Geonosian is killed, but the parasites have to find a new host, and they get into the clones, they get on a medical frigate. All of this crazy stuff is going on. And that's generally what happens.
And I love the name of that episode, Brain Invaders, because it's just perfect. Like, that's what's happening.
Well, yeah, like these are really well titled. Like Senate Spy, Landing at Point Rain, Weapons Factory, Legacy of Terror, Brain Invaders.
Yeah.
Perfectly named episodes. So, there is so much to cover in this, and we're not going to hit everything. So in the comments, whatever we don't hit, please let us know what your favorite part of this arc is. But I'd love to hear maybe like one or two of your favorite parts of this. I know my two, but I'd love to hear what you say.
I think my favorite part is in Weapons Factory, where Barriss and Ahsoka are willing to sacrifice their lives, and they don't just say, hey, we're going to do it. Like, they actually take the action, and it's like, we made this decision. And then Ahsoka gets the comm
she gets that back
to work so she can signal Anakin. And what I love the most is Anakin didn't give up on her. Like, Anakin knew, I don't know if he necessarily knew, like, it was the Force talking to him, or it was just that connection and that relationship. He wasn't willing to let her go, even if there was, it didn't turn out the way it did.
Well, I thought that was interesting because you saw how Luminar and Duel and Barriss operated. They were both just
very
like,
different.
Hey, this is the end. And then Anakin and Ahsoka were like, no, we're going to meet again.
Yes.
So.
And I think that's why they did. It's because Anakin didn't give up on Ahsoka, and Ahsoka didn't, she's like, my master will save me. And so I think if it was cool. Barriss and Luminara, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I want to call it Luminaire, which is from Beauty and the Beast, right?
Starting to cross
crossover,
IPs.
Yeah. But if it was just them or them and another, I don't think the Padawans would have made it. I think it's strictly because of Anakin and Ahsoka and their relationship. Even though you're not supposed to have one, their relationship is what saved them in that.
Yeah,
and I
think in Weapons Factory, I think the opening title, that's the one that said attachment is not compassion.
Yes.
So I think that was the nod to Anakin's attachment is compassion with Ahsoka, where in this case, Luminara and Duel's attachment per se, I don't know if I would call it an attachment, to Barriss is not compassion.
Well, and I think Anakin there's not only this attachment, there's this relationship, there's this pride to Anakin, and he thinks he's trained his Padawan well, so he's like, yeah, she's fine. But a big factor of it is he cares about her too. Like, it's
sure.
both. So I really liked that. And I did actually like in Senate Spy, kind of going backwards, but I liked in Senate Spy just Padme being undercover. Like, I think that's really cool. And you just kind of see Anakin's heart, and he's jealous. It's just cute to see Anakin's emotions. And he loves that woman like so much. And then the last thing I really liked is in Brain Invaders. I think that's a really good episode. And I never realized this before, but I even told you during. I was like, oh, it's like foreshadowing Order 66. It's even foreshadowing what's going to happen between Barriss and Ahsoka, because she attacks Ahsoka under the influence of this brain parasite, but later obviously she turns her back on Ahsoka. So watching this arc too, knowing what's going to happen, it makes it even sadder. Like, I'm like, you guys just shouldn't even be close. Like, Ahsoka, you're gonna get your heart ripped out. This girl ruins everything, so there's that tension in me. But I think that's what makes Clone Wars and makes most of Star Wars good, is they develop these beautiful relationships and connections, and then they get you invested, and then it's just something happens and it's kind of pulled from you, and you're like, wait, what? Because you were so invested in that character and that relationship. So even though I don't like Barriss, I think this was a really good arc, and I like their relationship, and you can see that they are friends and they relate to each other. So, because normally you see Ahsoka as kind of, she relates with Anakin and, has her moments, but she's a little girl. Anakin's a man. Yeah. So you can only relate so much. So having someone her age who's a Padawan is just cool to see. You see her feel like she belongs. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I think you get to see a level of Anakin and Ahsoka's relationship in this that you see in a lot of places, but it shines in this arc. It really does. For me, there's two things, maybe three, we'll see. But the first thing, I just thought this was so funny, in Landing at Point Rain, you see a Geonosis with a Gatling gun going at it. And I just thought it was
like that.
I just thought it was so unnerving, you know, like just to think of how they got the weapon, because obviously they have their like weird blaster kind of weapons.
Right.
It's almost like, it reminds me of like a stun gun, but it's not. But to see that, it was really cool. I mean, Landing at Point Rain, I loved it. The action was amazing. That was one that kept my attention the whole episode, just because it was just constant action. Like, there's even the scene where Rex like walks right up behind the droideka and basically puts his blaster like against what would be the chin and blows its head off. And
I love
that's
Rex.
where Anakin picks up Rex and throws him off the side because they jump after the bomb, and there's the explosion. It's also epic. It's really cool. But you know, I think just for time's sake, I'll just say one more for me.
I took too much time.
No, you didn't. You did not by any means. Normally, I just am very long-winded. No, but I think my next favorite one is Anakin-centric, and it's near the end of Brain Invaders. It's when on the medical frigate with Barriss and Ahsoka and the clones, you have the parasites running rampant, and they need to figure out from Poggle, like, how do you stop these? And so Anakin goes in on his own, and Anakin tries a mind trick, and Poggle's basically like, hey, it's not going to work on me, you know? And he's like, all right. And he turns around and punches him square in the face and force chokes him and lifts him up. And you see this, I mean, this is after the events of Attack of the Clones with the Tusken Raiders. So again, you see him slipping into darkness. And then even, you know, the masters are like, how did you get him to talk? And he's like, all that matters is I know what to do. And so you're seeing that slip.
Right.
It's like the dark side Qui-Gon almost, where Qui-Gon's like, hey, if it means doing a lesser evil to avoid a greater evil, we'll do it. But Anakin's tapping into the dark side for that.
For sure.
And so for me, that was my favorite part, because I love the development of Anakin and
so the Gatling guns and the force choke.
The Gatling guns and the force choke, the violence. That
sounds about right.
That's what I liked.
And I like the emotional.
Yeah, you like the heartwarming stuff.
Yeah.
So on a scale 1 to 10, what do you give this?
I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10 Geonosis? Okay. Me too. I was thinking 8 or 9.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna give it 8 because Senate Spy is good, but it's okay. I feel like the next 4 are good, but then even then they're disconnected. But it's a really good overarching storyline.
What I really like about Senate Spy though is it's different for Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's very different, and so that's why I'm like it pulls my attention. It's like, wait a minute, what's happening? 'Cause it's not the norm. It's different. So.
Yeah, I don't like Clovis. I don't think anybody does. Clovis
I don't
is scummy. But anyway, with that, let us know in the comments what you think about the Geonosis arc. What's your favorite part? Are you for the heartwarming stuff, or are you for the Gatling guns and the force chokes? Let us know. But with that, we are 2 Star Wars nerds, and may the force be with you always.
Always.